Dear Internet, what is the next hot trend shoe of 2025? There's so many different voices and opinions flying around in the industry, and it seems like nobody can even agree what's going to be the next trend shoe. Is it going to be a flat, low-profile shoe, or is it going to be a chunky hiker shoe? Is it going to be a vintage suede shoe, or is it going to be a Y2K silver running shoe? Or maybe, if you listen to all these industry professionals, the sneaker industry is already on its way into the graveyard. So, to add to this fire, to throw my own wrench into this dumpster fire, I'm going to propose a different take. I'm going to say the next trend sneaker isn't a sneaker at all. It's a classic old-fashioned leather shoe. Here's why. Hey there, what about those Mary Janes or those sneaker loafers that I keep seeing people talk about on social media? Aren't those going to be the next trend sneakers? Okay, hold on to that thought for a moment. So even though the industry might say the Mary Janes or the sneaker loafers is going to be the new hottest thing, I don't think everyone's going to end up wearing it. So it's going to end up being one of those fads where you see everyone on social media wearing it, but you go outside in real life and it's nowhere to be found. And in a year or maybe less than that, people are going to completely forget about it. There's an important distinction to make here. We can think about trend sneakers as two types of shoes: hype shoes and consensus shoes. So the previous example would be a hype shoe. I think both terms are equally valid and there is a place and time for both. However, the industry likes to get the two confused. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that you can't wear hype shoes or you shouldn't. That's just out of the scope of this video. So you say, what is an example of a consensus shoe? Starting from 2016 to 2018 era, the first consensus shoe I can think of will be the white common projects or the white Stan Smiths. I remember you had everyone on the streets wearing these, from guys to girls, old and young. Everyone had those along with also their skinny jeans, of course. And now if you fast forward to 2020 or so, I think the next consensus shoe becomes the New Balances. I remember the 990, 991, 992, all in gray. Those were incredibly popular for a while. And then in about 2023 or so, I think that's when the whole white fit craze took off. The shoe that was worn alongside the white fits were usually the silver or white Asics Gel Kayano and the Gel 1130. You also had the whole Samba craze start off during then, and that's been an incredibly popular shoe all the way until now. So if we get all those shoes together and we think about what really makes them common, what's the common variable with all of them? Starting with the common projects, of course. I think one thing that stands out is that they're all sufficiently easy to style. There's nothing too decorative or too crazy about them. They're not plain, they're definitely not plain, but they're not too crazy. And the most important part, every successive consensus shoe is sufficiently different from the previous one. All the way from the common projects to the New Balance, to the Asics, to the Sambas, every one of them was slightly different from the previous one. Yet they're all easy to wear. And every change of consensus shoe corresponds with a change of style, a change of fashion. From the slim fits for the common projects and all the way up to the super wide fits that we see now being worn with Sambas. So now that we're done building our foundation, let's talk about the meat of this essay. Let's talk about why I think the next consensus shoe is going to be a plain old leather shoe. I mean, just look at this thing. Like, look at the Samba. Doesn't it already feel like a leather shoe? It already has the materials of a leather shoe and it has the silhouette of a leather shoe. So now if I put this next to let's say a Paraboot or a 𝗵𝗵𝗽𝗀, or maybe this thing, you can see how this can feel like the next logical step of a consensus shoe evolution. And that sort of makes sense because every consensus shoe change has corresponded with a major fashion style change. So now what's brewing on the horizon? Well, if you look at menswear, a lot of people are now abandoning the old, very classic Red Wing flannel shirt kind of menswear in favor of a more wide fit, more Japanese kind of menswear, where you usually have something like a cropped denim jacket, a pair of selvage denim that's wide and also rolled up at the hems, and maybe a Barbour or a real McCoy's flight jacket. And of course, a pair of leather shoes. I've met so many people around me who are into this kind of fashion who also own a pair of Paraboots. A pair of leather shoes, as a consensus shoe, it absolutely works. It's easy to style, it doesn't stand out too much, but yet it's also not very common. And as for why they're getting popular all of a sudden, I feel like if you look at the data, every time there's a recession, on average, the fashion trends tend to become more conservative. People want to buy more higher quality stuff that'll last longer. They They don't feel optimism, which is why they want to dress more plainly. They want to command more respect with their dress. Now, if you consider what a leather shoe means, in other words, what are the semiotics of a leather shoe, obviously it has more formal associations with it being such an important part in business wear. I think if you wear a leather shoe, that's sort of like saying you're more polite, you're more put together, you're more here for business, you're more serious. A leather shoe also has aspects of timelessness. It's been around for a long time and it'll continue being around for a long time. It also denotes quality, of craftsmanship, and that might be very appealing. In the current age where trends come and go like no one's business, every week you're bombarded with a new trend on TikTok, a new core, I think some people might react to that by moving back to heritage, moving more towards things that will continue to last, things that they feel like they are real and not just fake conjured up by social media. And that absolutely fits in with the theme of our current economy and how people are feeling. All in all, this feels like the perfect storm for leather shoes to take over, for that to become the norm. And if you don't believe me, let's look back at Japanese fashion, because the current menswear style came from Japan. If you look at Japan, I remember personally, as a follower of Japanese fashion back in 2018, while everyone in the West was wearing their very skinny jeans and all that, the Japanese are also wearing their skinny jeans. However, some of them were choosing to wear their skinny jeans with these rolled up hems and red socks, and underneath the red socks, bam, a pair of leather shoes. That was always an option to them. And it's still an option even to this day. I feel like in fact, in the modern day, in 2025, I see more people wearing black leather shoes in Japan than normal sneakers, at least in the fashion world. In fact, there are some people out there in the Japanese fashion community who are pairing the same Paraboot Michaels that they've worn with their skinny jeans, but now in 2025 they're wearing it with their wide pleated trousers, they're wearing it with their wide denim, and it somehow still works. Like, you can pair this stuff with anything, and it will always work. I don't think you can say that with a lot of sneakers. And if you like fashion and you've been following fashion for a while, the next obvious question you might have for me is, when is this all gonna end? Because all trends eventually do end, and fashion always changes. Well, I'm afraid nobody really knows, and those who know, they don't really know what they're talking about. I mean, just look at the finance industry. You have some of the smartest people with the biggest degrees getting paid amazing sums of money, and they have access to the most data, the biggest compute in the world, and they can't even figure out what's gonna happen next year in the stock market. I think if your average fashion industry person says they can know the trends in a couple of years, well, I guess they have a better crystal ball than I do. So when are leather shoes gonna eventually come to an end? If you're tuned into social media, you'll basically know it when everyone else knows. And if you're even more tuned into the fashion industry and very specific regional or very specific subcultures, you might just get the memo a few years ahead of everyone else. And really, that's how I'm making this claim. A lot of our fashion trends currently come from Japan, and leather shoes has always been around in Japan. But on the bright side, I feel like leather shoes in general have a resistance to trends. Of course, they are influenced by trends and they will come in and out of style, but they will always be relevant in the same way that a white t-shirt is always relevant. You can always make a good outfit with a white t-shirt no matter what age it is, and you can always make a good outfit with a leather shoe no matter what age it is. And that's it. Thank you for watching. 𝗵𝗽𝗻𝗽𝗀 out.